that was the tipping point for me to start saying, okay, I've got to do something. I want to do something to make the world a better place.
Welcome to Social Situation, a podcast where we chat with and celebrate leaders challenging the status quo and creating innovations in social impact. Join us for conversations around the current and future state of social impact, the value of closing the gap between for-profits and nonprofits, and the importance of taking values-informed risks in order to create the greatest impact.
I'm Trevor Loke.
And I'm Erin Mogel.
And this is Social Situation.
Welcome to Social Situation, episode 9. In this episode, we'll be talking about building an online community of changemakers, making a difference, and creating a world that we all want to live in. Our guest, Terol, is the founder of Good Ripple, a tech platform app to connect passionate changemakers who are ready to make a difference in the world and take action, whilst helping them amplify their impact. Trevor, welcome back. We've been busy with life and took a break in October. It's great to be back. What have you been up to?
It is great to be back. I think it's been, not just a while since we put out an episode, but also since we've done a recording. And so there's been a lot of changes in both of our lives. I'm excited for you to share what you've been up to too. But on my side, I've been, first of all, taking on a new role as executive director of a nonprofit in Canada called Transparency International Canada. It's the Canadian chapter of Transparency International. And folks can go to transparencycanada.ca to read more about us if they're interested. But that's been keeping me very, very busy on top of the other work we're doing, especially with Orgmatch and my personal life. So it's been a lot of travel involved, but it's been really exciting. I love being back in the space of impact, back on the front lines, so to speak. And it really is helping me, I think, as a social entrepreneur to be more authentic and connected to the work that I'm doing. So that's been great, but very busy as well. But I think one of the biggest reasons we've been kind of in a different mode and that we're coming back now is that you've had some big news on your end, Erin. Do you want to tell our listeners about what you've been up to?
Sure. Thanks, Trevor. Well, first of all, congratulations on your new role. That is so exciting. And I'm sure that being able to work with Transparency International and with Orgmatch simultaneously, I'm sure you're just gleaning so much that can kind of support the other organization. I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways. So definitely would love to hear more about any learnings you've had kind of being on both sides of the impact space. I'm sure there's some definite crossover, so want to hear more. Congrats again. So yes, we have taken a break and have been, busy, of course, on both sides. And for me, I recently had a baby, a little girl. So I have been busy getting accustomed to parenting and learning how to take care of an infant. And I think what's been most exciting, I mean, so much of this is exciting for me, but what's been really exciting is seeing the world through her eyes and seeing her just get so excited about what you and I and, all of us adults probably think of as basic things that we don't think twice about. So, when I have my morning glass of orange juice or cup of coffee, she wants to grab onto the glass or the mug and is so excited and intrigued by it. We go to the grocery store and she's just, kind of bright eyes, looking all around, taking in all the sounds and all the different colors and all the people. And so it's just the little things that brighten her day. And it's really exciting to see her curiosity come alive. It's really exciting to see her learning and growing so much. I'm so grateful to be able to witness that. And, I think today is election day here in the US. And I just think about her and the future of our nation for our children and, just all the cool things that she's going to do. And how you and I, as folks in the impact space, all the great work that we can do and we can encourage others to do. so that future generations have a great place to live, have a world where we want to help one another and get along, and we're focused on making a positive impact and making a difference and doing good for our neighbor and all that goes along with that. So it's really exciting to, feel like there's a lot of pressure being a parent, of course, and teaching all these things and all these, all about philanthropy and impact. But I'm really grateful to be able to do that and to start sharing little bits of my work with my daughter as we go along.
Well, I can attest that Parker is absolutely adorable. And just huge congratulations to you, Erin.
Thank you.
Oh, of course. It's really beautiful to see you becoming a mom and expanding your family. It's something I've thought a lot about that I haven't taken the step to doing for a whole bunch of reasons that we could totally have a whole episode about, I'm sure. But I love what you're saying around, falling back in love with life through her eyes and seeing things through a new lens and thinking about the future. I think that's absolutely so important. And yes, what a coincidence that we're recording on election day in the US, but it's a great reminder to think about what the future holds for all of us, but especially for the new generations that are just coming into the world right now. So huge congratulations to you. And it's really, really exciting to be back at it. I mean, there's definitely no shortage of things in the social impact world that have gone on since our break. And so I'm really excited to dive into some of those things today with Carlos.
Absolutely. And I love what you said, Trevor, about falling back in love with life. I think that's how you phrased it. And I think that's so beautifully said. And I'm really excited to jump into our conversation today with Carlos. He is someone who exudes a love for life. I think our listeners will gather that, right from when he joins, his passion for the world around him, for making a difference, for building true, authentic, real friendships, for creating such beautiful community around him. He just is a wonderful human that you and I have been so grateful to get to know through this conversation and even beforehand. And I'm really excited to have him on as we approach year end and think about how we can give back and positively impact those around us. So with that, let's take a short break and we will be right back. Looking to make an impact, but not sure where to start? Elevate Social Impact, a purpose-driven consulting and coaching practice, helps companies develop their CSR strategies and embed a culture of giving back into their brand. And they guide individuals looking for fulfilling careers in social impact. Whether you're wanting to grow your company's give back efforts or find values alignment and make a greater difference through your work, Elevate Social Impact is excited to equip you with the knowledge, resources, and tools that you need to get started. Check out elevatesocialimpact.com today to learn more. Welcome to Social Situation. We are honored to have Carlos Terol joining us today. Carlos is the founder of Good Ripple, a global community of changemakers with 3,000 people from 99 countries. He is also a climate fresque facilitator and a top corporate sustainability voice on LinkedIn with over 25,000 followers. We're so excited to have Carlos with us here today. Welcome, Carlos.
Hi, Erin and Trevor. Thanks a lot for having me here. It's a real honor.
Well, thank you for being here, Carlos. Erin's told me a lot about you before we were able to connect today, and it's been a really great conversation just in the few minutes we've had before we hit the record button. I love your passion. It really comes through. And you are especially talented at inspiring people to create positive impact in the world. I want to know, how did you get started on this journey? How did you find this path for yourself?
Yeah, good question. I think we probably need to go back around 9 years. I used to be a very different person 9 years ago. So I'm from the Canary Islands in Spain. And for those of you or who are listening that don't know where they are, it's just off the coast of Africa in front of Morocco. And, we're politically, we're Spain. So, everything is Spanish there. And something that's really interesting is that I've got a few friends that are from Western Sahara, which is literally just in front of the Canary Islands. Some of them that started with me when we finished our degree. I started at civil engineering. They asked me, why did you come here to Western Sahara for some time? And I was like, okay, I'll go there. Why not? And I actually kind of moved. I took a suitcase with the intention of just living there. Why not to try something different? And when I landed there, I saw a totally different reality. And it's just 30 minutes flight from where I was born. And that really opened my eyes because suddenly, I saw people living in poverty. I saw really lack of opportunities. And up until that point, I was thinking, I've got my degree, I've got this, I've got that because I've earned it, because I've worked hard, because I put the energy. But then I realized that there was something else underneath all of that. And it's that I had the opportunity to do that, right? And flying there and being there with my friends made me realize that I was super lucky to have been born just 30 minutes away from there. It's not like you have to take a plane and fly across the world. It was just 30 minutes. That really shocked me. I was thinking, I really have a responsibility towards making the world a better place because suddenly I've realized it's not just because I put energy or effort or whatever. It's because I was given the opportunity. And I believe that we should be giving the opportunity to everyone in this world because we're just limiting our potential as a human species by, picking who gets the opportunity to study or to, get a proper education or sanitation or health or you name it, everything. So that was the tipping point for me to start saying, okay, I've got to do something. I want to do something to make the world a better place.
And Carlos, I just want to build on that answer because, we can fast forward a little bit to what you're doing today with Good Ripple. And I want to know how Good Ripple advances that personal mission you just described.
Yes. So Good Ripple is an idea that I had actually 8 years ago. Roughly like a year after this trip to Western Sahara, I was running events for a charity and realized that it was super difficult to connect with other change makers. I had to spend like tons of hours and energy and to finally find that there was this change maker just across my street. And I would have never met that person if I hadn't put all of that energy. I was thinking, there's got to be something like Tinder where you can just go and find these change makers around you, right? I started looking for it, didn't find it, and I kind of got distracted with other things for the last 8 years. I'm thinking, how can I maximize my positive impact in the world? And I had this idea in the background of making this app for change makers to come together. But I was thinking, that's going to be something done by somebody with lots of resources, say Bill Gates or the United Nations or one of these wealthy or big organizations that have the power. But after 8 years, I realized, okay, that hasn't happened. And I really believe that we still need this app. So somehow I built the commitment to really start that work. So that was over a year ago when we decided to start the community of Good Ripple. And the way it's helping me advance on that mission is that I see the power of bringing people together and breaking silos and helping people collaborate more. And that's really our core value proposition, is connecting people. Then from there, we want to help them amplify their positive impact in the world. So that it's not just one person, two people, but all the collective coming together, joining forces. Our mission in Good Ripple is to connect 300 million change makers by 2030. It's a pretty ambitious one. I'm not sure with the current numbers we'll get there, but we need to aim high. So that's where we're aiming for.
I love that, Carlos. Knowing you and knowing the impact that you have on people, I am so certain you can do it. And I'm along for the ride. I'm excited to see it happen. Anything Trevor and I can do to be of support, let us know. I love ambitious goals, especially, yes, of course, especially ambitious goals that are impact oriented. And just going back to your experience in Western Sahara, that really stuck with me, the proximity. And like you said, we're all born into different circumstances, right? I used to work at a nonprofit where part of the kind of motto or tagline was, should your birthplace determine your future? And, we can't choose where we're born. We can't choose the circumstances that we're born into. Some of us are born into wealth and prosperity. Some of us are born into health. Others are born into different circumstances. So the fact that you had that revelation, that aha moment, and not just realized it, but decided, this is my mission now to help people make a greater impact, to bring people together, to help amplify their collective impact is just so admirable. And I'm excited to see all that you continue to do. And with that, I was checking out your LinkedIn profile again before our conversation. Wanted to make sure I had everything up to date. And I read the following, which really stuck with me. You said, "At Good Ripple, we believe in a world where the dream of global prosperity in balance with the planet is a reality for everyone, everywhere." And I'm wondering if you could explain what global prosperity and balance with the planet looks like, and kind of anything else related to that vision that you want to share with our audience.
Yes, definitely. So I think that comes quite tied to the concept of the donut economics. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but basically it's about focusing on the well-being of people without overshooting the planetary boundaries, right? So if you can sort of imagine that donut, the outer ring is all the planetary boundaries, so things like climate change, ocean acidification, etc. So making sure that whatever we do, we're not taking more resources from the planet that they can provide. So it's not made in a non-sustainable way. And again, with emissions and land use change, everything that's making sure that all of our activity is done in a sustainable, truly sustainable way. Not just the greenwashing way, but really staying within those limits that the planet can cope with. But then there's also the inner circle of that donut, which is the social foundation, right? Because if we go underneath that layer, then you have people living in poverty with no access to water, with no access to infrastructure, hospitals, schools, etc. Right? We want to have a minimum, that social foundation. And for us, that's kind of how we describe living within the donut. It's about focusing on well-being, prosperity for everyone, so that everyone is above that social foundation, but without overshooting the planet, so in balance with the planet. That's kind of what we came up to describe focus on well-being of both people and planet together.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Carlos. And again, I love the clarity that you're able to provide, and being able to visualize that donut. I can picture it, right? And I think that's really powerful for people. It speaks to the success you've had as a communicator on platforms like LinkedIn. You've got over 25,000 followers at this point. Your message is resonating, and I'm curious about how you've discovered how to hone this message and amplify it.
Good question. I think something that I've realized over the years is that when it comes to social impact, sustainability, climate change, etc., I feel that a lot of the time the concepts tend to be very technical and very sort of PhD oriented in a way. And unfortunately, although that's amazing, we really need these PhD, we really need all these experts to go deep into the topics, but we also need some people that translate that message and can reach everyone out there to make it super accessible. I think that's kind of been the missing piece in the puzzle, and the main reason why we still have climate change is, I believe, because we haven't been able to get a lot of people on board. So to me, making that translation from the technical part into something that's really accessible for the large majority of people and can see it as something inspiring and actionable, it's super key. So because that was a pain that I had myself, because to be honest, I myself get bored with technical reports and things like that. I'm like, okay, I know that's important, but I want something that's actionable, relatable to me, and that I can do something about. So when I started sharing content on LinkedIn and pretty much every communication around these topics, I try to keep it very accessible. And in fact, that's something that I've got written in my sort of tagline on LinkedIn, is trying to make social impact sustainability accessible to everyone. Because I do believe that unless we get everyone on board, we're not going to get the systems change that we need. So I'm a big believer that instead of having a few perfect change makers, the very technical people and all the rest, we need 8 billion imperfect change makers that are doing what they can to make the world a better place. And I believe that when we get that critical mass, then change will just happen inevitably very quickly.
That's great, Carlos. I'm so impressed by all that you put out on LinkedIn, and you shed so much light on other change makers out there, which is so admirable because it's just a testament to the work that you're doing and your focus on community and connectivity. I see a lot of posts, you've included me in some before, which is so generous, of different change makers to follow, or coaches or organizations doing impactful work. And I love that because that's something you don't have to do, right? You are taking the time to shed light on other people's businesses and other people's work, which I think just lends itself so well to Good Ripple and your mission, at the organization. And just to kind of dig into LinkedIn a little bit more, because you are such an influencer in the impact space. I don't know if that's your preferred word, but you have such an incredible following. And I see that, I see the comments and engagement with your posts. What's your process for drafting these posts, and what's your, how do you get your ideas? How do you decide what to write about, or what's current, or what sticks with people? Is it, you wake up in the morning and something comes to your mind, or is there a more, kind of planned out process for your content creation? Would love to hear kind of what's going on in your mind as you think through LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's a difference between the ideal world and the real world for me. And what I did initially is I really built a really good strategy, or what I think it is a good strategy that seems to work. So I did plan ahead, all my posts, and I would write them at least 1 week in advance and do it all very organized and structured. And I still try to do that when I can, but the reality is I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed with everything that has to be done. And sometimes, lately especially, I've just been improvising the posts on the day. So what I do is not just improvise the topic, but I've got a long list of ideas that I know I want to write about. So I would just go into that list that I've got in Notion and then just pick the one that I feel like writing about that day, just write on the spot. So I think it depends. Like on a relaxed week, I would probably prefer to plan it in advance, write it in advance, so I know everything is written, everything's scheduled, so I have more time to be there and engage with the comments, engage with people. But sometimes on a bit of a hectic week, I would just improvise the post and just go with it. Just something I want to share for everyone who's listening, and maybe they're considering sharing content, whether it's on LinkedIn or any other platform. And there's always this fear of, oh, what am I going to write about? And I don't have that many things to talk about. I had that fear initially as well. And I think once I pushed myself to start posting, suddenly you start coming up with more ideas that you would have never thought about, just because you are putting yourself in that situation and suddenly you're starting to engage with people in that same space. I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, I'm getting ideas from you, and the way around. Suddenly it becomes quite natural and ideas just come to mind, and the list of ideas builds longer than the actual post that you can write about. So I've got now like a backlog of, I don't know, like 60 or 70 ideas that I want to share, that I just don't have enough days to post in. So I think just encouraging everyone to take that first step and start sharing, and don't be afraid of what are you going to talk about. Just start sharing what you're thinking, your opinion on something, and you'll see how ideas will start coming as you start surrounding yourself with people with more content in that space. It'll just become part of who you are. So yeah, go with it.
Thank you for encouraging our audience. That's really helpful. I know we have a lot of people listening who, might be thinking about creating content on LinkedIn, but it's scary at first, right? And so I love your encouragement, around taking that first step. You are a great example in that you're vulnerable with your posts and you're open, and, like you said, all your posts are very accessible. And, especially in the impact space, people are so supportive and want to help each other, want to work together to make an impact. So definitely as well encourage our listeners to give it a try and see how it goes. And with that, having connected with you, had some great calls with you by this point, and obviously engaged on LinkedIn for a while now, I can see that you are a person with immense integrity, and I can see that you really live by your values. And I want to kind of dig into the values piece for a second here. I'm curious what role values play in your work, as a founder and as a business owner, and also if you can speak to what role kind of values play in the impact or social impact sector in general from your perspective.
That's a really good question, Erin. Thank you. I think to me, 100%, yes, I'm very much driven by values. I think it's a lot better than just being driven by goals, because goals, they change a lot and they're more like sort of yearly specific or monthly specific. But if you act out of your values, then you can be certain that you're going to be moving in the right direction. And I think that's important, right? Whether you meet your goals or not, that's not so important, but at least you know the direction is right because you're following your values. To me, I'm quite supportive of values that tend to be positive and that tend to make the world a better place. So I'll focus a lot on things like kindness, love, and generosity. Those kind of values, I think we need to nurture more of them. Because somehow we feel, they just happen by art of magic. And the reality is that it doesn't. We need to nurture those values, right? And it's about trying to make them into practice in every single situation in our lives. So it's not about, hey, when you walk in the street and you see a homeless person stopping by and talking to them. That's truly amazing. I really encourage more people to do it because these stories you can hear from them is amazing. But we need to spread that across the entire day. And whenever you have an opportunity to show kindness, whether it is to the postman, to a waiter, or anybody else, just show it. Because that little act of kindness, it can really go a long way in terms of the ripple effect, right? So I think it's something that as a society, maybe we are kind of not so connected with our values anymore, or maybe we have shifted some of our values to something a little bit more material, more, capitalistic in a way, where we're told that we need to be more independent and not depend on your neighbors. So, you try to accumulate wealth and that's how you move forward in life. And again, something that I learned a lot when I went to Western Sahara was about values, because seeing people there living pretty simple, humble lives, and yet focusing so much in love, family, friends, being humble, all of those values, suddenly I kind of, again, opened my eyes to what really matters in life. Because everything else, it's kind of superficial. It's not going to be there all the time. Like we come to this world with nothing and we're going to live with nothing. So we'd rather focus on deep values of connection, love, kindness, generosity. And again, going to the social impact industry, I think obviously because it's social impact, people have more of those values naturally. And something that is important that I don't talk enough about this, but I feel that when people want to work in social impact because, they love making the world a better place, sometimes the other industry see it as, what you're doing is just charity and, you should be doing it for free, just volunteer because, that you're doing it because it's your passion or whatever. And that's something that really strikes my mind, how we can have still that mindset in society where people who follow their values to try to change the world and make it better, they should be compensated less than other people that are just chasing money or fame. Like, to me, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm trying to be more loud about it to try and inspire more people to shape and change that mindset, because I'm a huge believer that we should all be led more by values and less by, materials and everything else.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like there's a lot of cynicism, skepticism out there, and it's across people's political beliefs. It's across cultures. I see it, across how people identify and their experience. And this lack of trust, I think, the only antidote is everything you just said. How do we build connection? How do we show that, in fact, we can live by our values and we can live in a state where not everything is a transaction, not everything is about, how am I going to win? How are you going to lose? It's more about how are we going to rise the tide for everybody? Because that's actually an option that we don't seem to consider for one reason or another. And I just really appreciate you bringing that up, Carlos. And I want to go back to, you mentioned Western Sahara. This is a very critical, maybe one of the most critical catalytic points in your life for moving this momentum forward. And this was a voluntary choice and a community that you found and built up. I just want to learn more about how impactful that was for you to find this community. And maybe if you had some advice for others that are looking to find their purpose, how can they go on their own Western Sahara journey?
Yeah, good question. I think to me, it was the combination of going to Western Sahara, and at the same time, I was also going through some personal challenges because my mom just had a pretty severe mental health condition. This is something, to be honest, I don't share about very often, but I think it's quite crucial in this story because I was going through that challenging time. And suddenly I started learning more about how can we focus more on happiness, because at that point I wasn't happy. I was having like really big issues with all the situation with my mom and everything else. And I started learning the science or the art of happiness. And with that, together with seeing the people in Western Sahara, their values and everything else, it kind of joined in a magic way to tell me, look, if you can do something in your life to make others happy, then that's purpose. That's the meaning of your life. That's why you're here. Like, I don't know who or what told me that, but whether it was the universe or something, I kind of had that calling of, hey, your purpose in life is to make other people happy. And the way I looked at it, it was like not just people around you happy. I think a lot of people focus on making people around us happy, which I think it's important. But we need to look beyond that, because if we only focus on people around us, people who have no opportunities, surrounded by people with no opportunities, they're really going to have a hard time to find that happiness. So if we can do something to help them, I think it's amazing if we try. So to me, yeah, I think, having those things happening together was very revealing to me. And what I would say to people is, you know, try to really find something that makes other people happy, and not just the people around you, but the entire world happy. How can we create a world of happiness? Because to me, if we can reach that level, like once you are happy with yourself, the only thing that's left to do in life is to help other people be happy. So I would encourage people to look at happiness, at whatever that means for them, and see, okay, how can I build more happiness to myself that then I can just to spread to other people? And a lot of the time it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't focus too much on yourself and more in making others happy, then you're going to be happy. So I would say, just try to make the world a better place, make other people happy. And, I was thinking a lot that regardless of the situation that I'm in, I always can do something to make other people happy, right? Even if I have no money, even if tomorrow I become blind or I have an accident and I get no arms and no legs, I can still do something for the world. I can still do whatever I can with my capacity and my background and my story. I can still do something to make the world a better place and make other people happy. So for me, that's how I found meaning. And I feel quite lucky to have found my purpose when I was 25 years old. Because I see people spending their lives looking for purpose, not finding it. And I think the key is to realize that you don't need to look for it, you already have it. And the moment you stop looking for it, is when you realize it's within you. And then it's unleashing that power within you to create more ripples of positive impact in the world.
That was so beautifully said, Carlos. I mean, first of all, we need more Carloses in the world. If we had more, our world would be in a fundamentally different place. Oh, that's very kind. No, I love what you said, and your focus on happiness, and especially what you said about our purpose being within. I think that's such an interesting perspective on it, and our ability. Everyone can make a difference. Everyone can make an impact on someone else's life. You don't need to have all the money in the world. You don't need to have all of the resources or education or access in the world. Anyone can do a small act of kindness, and like you said, that ripple effect can fundamentally change our society. So thank you for inspiring us all today. Obviously, you are doing such amazing work. You have a huge role in what you're doing, to change the world. And I know that, running a business, while super rewarding, can also be stressful at times, right? There's a lot to do, and you're serving a lot of people. So I'm curious, Carlos, when you take a break from work, what do you like to do for fun and to relax, to just kind of step back from it all for a bit?
I think one of my favorite things is meditation and yoga. I actually do a lot of it, or I try to do as much as I can, because to me, that's my hobby, but it's also the thing that makes everything else a lot easier. And I would, again, really encourage people, if you haven't tried meditation, really try it, because in my experience, there's nothing like it. Like, the power of meditation, where you can learn how your mind works, it's powerful, really, really powerful. And there's other things that can give you that meditative state, like whether it is yoga or going for a run or doing other sports or extreme sports. Like, it keeps you very focused on the present. It can give you a really meditative state as well. But sitting down with yourself and nothing else than yourself and just watching your mind, there's nothing like it. And to me, again, that's something that I started kind of when I started going to the Western Sahara. And it's been also a big part of my transformational journey, I believe, because thanks to that, I've kind of been able to put a little bit of distance between myself and my thoughts. And when something happens and my mind wants to go crazy and get angry or get upset or whatever, if we can build that little distance between ourselves, our true selves, and the thoughts or mind, then we can decide how to react to it. So to me, doing meditation every morning, it helps me build that distance. And the day I don't do it, I feel how that distance is a lot shorter, and then I'm more reactive to things. I don't do my best, and maybe I'm not as happy as I could be. So for me, it's a key practice that I truly try to do every day, at least about half an hour of meditation a day. Really helps me just be a better person. Yeah. So I would totally, totally encourage, again, anybody who's listening to try it out, even if it's just for 2 minutes to get started. It's a big start. So, whatever one can do, I think it's amazing. And the long-term effect of that, honestly, like when I look back 8 years ago when I started, I was a very different person in terms of what I can cope with. And again, whether you have your own business or you're an employee or whichever your situation is, if you can use that skill to build that distance between your mind and yourself, you can do a lot more of whatever you're doing. And that means a lot more positive impact as well. So totally recommend it.
Carlos, I really love and appreciate that. I'm trying to build, well, I let's just say I'm an inconsistent meditator. One benefit I get from meditating, and I always come away with this to remind myself of the importance of it, is, as you said, you get that distance. And it's kind of like, for me, like reading a social media feed. It's just that the feed is my thoughts, right? And oftentimes what I have been able to see as a result of that is like, what are the thoughts that are coming from this place of love and joy that you're describing? And then I'm also able to see, like, when does my inner saboteur show up to try to distract me, tell me I'm not good enough, tell me I'm not going to, that like the effort is not worth it. And I'm wondering, like, for you, when those moments come, how have you been able to address those and overcome them?
Good question. I think I really try to bring consciousness in that time. It's not easy. again, the more meditation I do, I feel that I can bring that consciousness in that time a lot easier. So a day that, I've done enough meditation, I'm quite relaxed. If something happens, then I'm like, okay, I can see that thought coming up, arising and saying, hey, this is stressful, or you should be sad, or you should be angry. I try to think, okay, I'm recognizing this thought. I know that it's not me because I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be upset. If you ask me, because that's the thing, like we are given the choice in every single second of our life, we are given a choice. Do you want to be happy or not? And we can choose. The problem is we're not aware that we can choose. So when we build that awareness and then every single second we realize, I can choose to be happy. Like, yeah, this happened. It's not great. I would have rather it being different, but I can still be happy. Not because of it, but in spite of it. And that's what I try to do when something like that happens. I try to step back and say, hey, yeah, this is not the most ideal situation, but I still have the choice to be happy. And I think, again, it's a skill. It's like going to the gym. The more you go to build muscle, the more muscle you build. So the more you work on bringing this awareness in those specific times when it happens, it really helps. Just saying, okay, I'm going to let it go. And it happens. You can feel that negative emotion for a little bit, but the key is not to be attached to it. Just, as it comes, you observe it and let it go. It's easier said than done. And again, that's why if we prepare for it, if we just try to do it without preparation, it's a lot more difficult because we're going to be stuck in the train of thought and just go with it and exaggerate it and build it up. And, it can end up really bad. But if we train for when it happens by doing meditation and other practices like that, then it becomes a lot easier. And I've been aware of myself, like how 8 years ago, I just couldn't bring that moment of awareness. And I would get angry and be upset maybe for like days with somebody just because they said something I didn't like. And now I'm like, okay, they said something I didn't like. I don't know why they said it, but I know they've got the reasons to say it because that's why they said it, right? Just that I don't understand those reasons, but there are reasons that they have. And that just makes me have that separate perspective and say, okay, so that's fine. I'm not going to be angry. I didn't quite like that, but it's okay. We can still be happy and be friends. So yeah, again, I think it's trying to become very aware, very self-aware on those moments. It really makes a difference. But again, easier said than done. It's not that I can do it all the time. I wish I could. But yeah, I feel that with more practice, it becomes easier, which is good.
That's great perspective. It really seems like it's a muscle that we need to flex. And like you said, it's something we're constantly working on. But I really appreciate that focus on self-awareness. A lot of the people listening to our podcast are, folks that are maybe starting businesses, folks in the social impact space that have a lot of stress on their shoulders in terms of, their work being focused on making a difference and fundamentally, changing our society. And so there's a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure in our work lives, of course. There's a lot of pressure in our personal lives. We're in a fast-paced society and a very technologically, advanced society and interconnected society where it's easy for us to engage with one another, but also easy for us to, kind of fixate on things that are said or experiences that we have. And I really appreciate your reminder of how we can take care of ourselves and put things into perspective and choose to be happy and choose to be positive and choose to kind of move forward on our own, personal mission. So thank you for that wise advice. It's definitely something I'm going to continue to think about.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. And just to clarify there for everyone who's listening, it's not about neglecting our negative emotions, right? Like we need to recognize those. So that's healthy. That's why they're there. They're telling us something. I think the key is to recognize when we are having those negative emotions and trying to learn for the future, for next time, how can we improve that? How can we be stuck less time in those negative ones? Recognize them, acknowledge them, but don't be stuck with them for a long time. And I think that's key because a lot of the time we say, it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel angry, which is totally is. But we also need to recognize that it's good to work on trying to minimize those because otherwise we just continue going through the same all the time and being a lot sad and a lot angry and a lot upset and frustrated, etc. So it's recognizing them when they happen without neglecting them, but also recognizing that we can do something to have fewer of those and transform it into positive ones quicker. So just to clarify that for people who are listening.
Yeah, I love that, Carlos. And I think that's, part of being the imperfect change maker is recognizing that like mistakes are going to happen. And it's not about saying that, oh, no matter what, like I'm going to try to be perfect so I avoid those mistakes. It's as you say, it's like, how do I carry forward? How do I still achieve the mission despite this setback or despite this mistake? And I think that is really the power of what we're doing. It takes a lot of work to save the world. It takes a lot of people, and it's a heavy burden. So with that being said, I want to thank, we're at the end of our episode. This is our last question. I just want to thank you for the time because it's been such an enlightening episode for me personally and professionally. And I love that you're able to tie those things together. I want to talk about your legacy. You're already building one. You've talked about 300 million change makers by 2030, really ambitious goal. I want to think about, 80, 100, 200 years from now. What is your legacy that you're leaving to the world?
Good question. I think it's a world where social impact and sustainability don't exist anymore because it's ingrained in everything we do. So it's not an option, it's just part of our culture. So that's like my vision where we don't need to be doing this anymore because everyone is doing it. I think, and I believe that we can get there. I believe that I could even see it in my lifetime. People say I'm an optimist. My girlfriend say I'm too optimistic, but I believe we can. Like we know how to get there. We just need to get more people on board so that it can happen faster. But yeah, I think we can get to a world where it's just the natural way to be, to, be focused on social impact, sustainability, happiness, stay within the planetary boundaries above the social foundation, where everyone has embraced these, every business has embraced these, every organization, then it's a really wonderful world to live in.
Thank you again, Carlos, for joining us today. Carlos Terol is the founder of Good Ripple. Please consider checking out goodripple.co, goodripple.co to learn more about Carlos's incredible work, and please connect with him on LinkedIn. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be right back.
$60 billion is being given by companies to nonprofits in 2024 to maximize regulatory benefits and manage reputation for employees and customers. Some companies are struggling. The rest are using Orgmatch because Orgmatch optimizes this process, saving time and money required in due diligence, research, and administration, while increasing confidence in the impact and investment earned. That's why community investment teams around the world are trusting Orgmatch to get the job done. Find out for yourself by going to orgmatch.com. That's orgmatch.com to get started now for free. Welcome back. It's time for us to share what's on our mind. Erin, what has been on your mind since we last connected?
Yeah, so as we shared at the top of our conversation today, it is election day here in the US. So, of course, that has been top of mind for a while now, as it has been for pretty much everyone, I would say. And, something I think about, of course, right now it's morning, at least here on the West Coast on election day. We don't know the results. We won't for a while now. But I think that actually is perfect timing because what I want to talk about is not the politics of it all and not how people are choosing sides or kind of the barriers that we might be seeing between people on one side or the other, voting for one candidate or the other. I think we definitely are seeing a lot of polarization right now. So instead of getting into all of that, what I really want to talk about is how we can come together. Of course, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, their own preferences, their own vote. I'm so grateful to live in a country where we can vote freely for our president, and being in a democracy is such a privilege. But what I want to talk about, what's been on my mind, is how we can all come back together a little bit, right? I think especially in the space that we're in, I would say generally, we're all wanting to collaborate and connect and support one another and make a positive impact. And I think it's really important now more than ever to find points of connection with colleagues, with friends, with neighbors, with clients, whomever we're working with. Yes, politics has taken a, really big focus in our world right now, as it always has, but especially now I feel. But also I think it's important that we can always find points of commonality, right? We all want to live healthy, happy lives. We all want peace. We all want to create a great world for future generations to come. And so I think just kind of getting back to basics when we are feeling like we're living in a more polarized world can be really helpful. It's not always easy because, of course, politics is so much of what we think about. It has taken over so much of our lives with recent elections here in the US. But I do feel, maybe I'm a pure optimist, but I do feel that we can really get along with our neighbor, get along with our colleagues, build community with folks that might have differing views, and that we can all try a little bit harder to break down those barriers. And so with that, Trevor, curious what you're thinking about lately. What's been on your mind?
Well, I just want to follow up on that, Erin, because it's so interesting and it's such a big topic. I mean, everyone around the world is definitely paying attention to what's happening in the U.S. election. I was speaking with a colleague in Berlin this morning who mentioned that was the issue of her day that she was paying attention to. So definitely can say, there's a worldwide audience for it. And I love what you said up front, like we have to value different perspectives, living in Canada and another Western democracy. I know there's a lot of criticism of, Western countries and how we've treated the world, but fundamentally the basics we get pretty well right, and at the heart of that is the ability to live in pluralistic democratic societies. And it's been really troubling to see the erosion of trust, the growth of disillusionment and cynicism, leading to polarization of our neighbors, where we can't even listen to each other at times, or make time for each other. And that's been ultimately really disappointing. But I think there's also this incredible realization that, like, it can't go on like this, and that there's honestly felt like a little bit of an easing of the pressure lately. And I feel like maybe we are, and I'm just going to be an optimist here, moving back in the right direction, at least somewhat. And it's not going to clear up polarization, it's not going to clear up disagreement, but I think we can realize that we can live with each other, even when we lose elections, and that there are ways forward. Ultimately, there are, real threats, there are real issues, policy decisions matter, but by and large, we can settle those differences through elections and be okay. And so I think that, my hope is that that's the case for you. We've had some contested elections, recently, here north of the border in Canada, and in my province of BC, we just voted a few weeks ago. And again, we see a lot of polarization, between parties, but at the end of the day, someone has to form the government, and we all have to live together. So that's definitely not an issue that's only affecting you in the US, but something that we're always thinking about as well. I think leading by example matters a lot. I'm really encouraged to see candidates stepping outside of their own, natural constituencies and barriers to try to reach out to the other side. For instance, I saw Vice President Harris on Fox News recently. I think, that's an example of obviously a really challenging environment to put yourself in, but, good on us for when we step outside and try to speak to different audiences and try to speak about our perspectives and why we hold them and where we come from. I think that helps. That understanding can really help with depolarizing those environments. And I know that there are a lot of Republicans who have stepped up as well and really spoken out, putting themselves on the line by speaking up about disagreements with their party, or the discourse that things have happened. And so it's great to see, people willing to step outside of their what's safe to do the right thing. And as long as we have good actors like that, I think we can feel optimistic about where we're going.
Absolutely. I think those are such great examples. And I agree. I think that hopefully we are on the precipice of a time with a little less contention or a little less polarization. So Only time will tell, but I definitely think there's hope for us, and just kind of getting back to those basics of how can we get along, how can we find points of commonality, and how can we respect one another while staying true to our own opinions is part of the way forward. So yeah, really appreciate your thoughts there. So Trevor, what has been on your mind recently? I know it's been a little bit since we've connected, so I'd love to hear what you've been thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, organization is a really key for me, wearing multiple hats. And so I've been, relying on my handy notebook, pen, and paper to help me get organized. But I've also been using a system. It's called bullet journaling, and that's been really helping me just stay on track with, what I need to get done in the day. What's a top priority, what can I move? How can I arrange things? And it just kind of helps keep me focused on the most important tasks at hand for my roles, so that things are getting done, things are somewhat organized, and I'm not pulling my hair out too much. Trying to keep on top of things. So, bullet journaling is a really interesting system. You can use it with any pen and paper, and basically, you put little codes next to the items, or tasks or events that are on your to-do list for a day or a week, or however you want to organize it. And those, you can start with a little dot, and then you basically turn the dot into, an X when you complete it, or a forward slash if you want to move it to another day, things like that. So it can be quite technical, but for me, it's been a good process for keeping organized that I wanted to share with our listeners. For folks who are feeling overwhelmed, or they don't have a system to be able to track what they need to get done, that's been really, really helpful for me as I've been getting myself busier and busier.
I love that. I've always been a list person my whole life, I have to admit. And I'm sure there are others out there listening that are like this as well. If there's something I have completed or accomplished that was never on the list to start with, I am one of those people that will go back to the list and write it on just so I have the satisfaction of crossing it off, even if I forgot to put it on the list in the first place. So I definitely want to try this bullet method. That's really cool to hear. And I'm so glad that it has been useful for you. And I'm sure it's been a very busy time, seeing as you have two full-time jobs right now, Trevor. So I'm curious kind of, what that's looked like for you balancing the two. Have you found overlap or synergies as you kind of work on different sides of the impact space? What has that looked like since you took on your new role?
Well, thanks. So it's a really good question. And yeah, I mean, the focuses are a little bit different, but certainly similar. I mean, with Orgmatch, for instance, it's been a lot of, product development, meetings with customers to help drive our innovation and what the next version of our products are going to look like. A lot of outreach to customers as well as we're scaling up and starting out. And so that's been pretty focused work, I would say, on that side. And so it's really a lot of repetition and just, trying to have a minimum number of meetings throughout the week, so that we're meeting our metrics for what we need to get done on that side. And on the nonprofit side, it's a lot more complicated. I would say, being an executive director, there are just a lot of little things that come up throughout the day. People will send a lot of, I'll get random emails from people who want to collaborate on things. For instance, this morning I got an email from a research institution that wants to collaborate on a potential project for next year. And so I am always, responding to incoming inquiries and having to make decisions about, how can we move forward? Do we have capacity to facilitate these collaborations, things like that? So having to be a lot more responsive, I would say, on those types of things. And then, just it's the nuances of any organization. In our case, everything from budget to human resources. So it's definitely all encompassing. It's very it's different from being a startup, even though the company and the nonprofit are actually at a similar size. The nature of the work is actually quite different, but I would say very complementary as well.
That's fantastic. Congratulations again, Trevor. I know that you are doing so much, and I know that you're wearing multiple hats. I'm sure going from 1 second doing nonprofit work to then doing your company work. I know it can be a lot being on different sides and kind of having to switch things in your brain. But I'm really glad that you're enjoying it, and just goes to show there are so many different ways to make an impact. And I'm grateful that on this platform we can have guests on that represent all different sides of the impact space, because it's not just about nonprofit, it's not just about corporate social impact or about foundation work and philanthropy. There's so many different ways to do impactful, fulfilling work, and you are a testament to that. So thank you for sharing, and yeah, kudos to you for all that you're doing. It's really impressive.
Well, thank you, Erin. I really appreciate it, and likewise, I'm very impressed with your ability to carry on with your new full-time job as a mom, and also continue with Elevate Social Impact, which I know is making a big difference in the lives of social impact professionals. So, thank you for all of this. It's really great to reconnect and get our next episodes going. So, Erin, it's been a pleasure. Social Situation is co-hosted by me, Trevor Loke, Erin Mogel, and presented by Elevate Social Impact and Orgmatch. Editing is by Tristan Thomson. New episodes are released on the second Thursday of each month. Visit socialsituationpodcast.com to learn more or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.